I know it might be a weird question, but is there any video game you can honestly say changed your life? If you asked me, the answer would be, yeah, there is one. It was summer 2007, I think. My best friend went on holiday to Croatia with his parents, so I was bored to death. While I was reading some gaming magazines, I found a preview of a game called Stalker: Oblivion Lost. The preview promised sophisticated AI, realistic graphics, intense firefights with both mutants and human opponents, and multiple endings. It immediately hyped me for said game. I googled the title and found out that the game was renamed to Stalker: Shadow of Chernobyl and had been released several months earlier. Without wasting any time, I downloaded the pirated version. I was amazed by the atmosphere of the game. Never had I felt so immersed in any video game before. Graphics and gameplay were also great, but it was the atmosphere that kept me playing. There is a chance you've never heard of Stalker, but I'm not surprised. Despite achieving almost a cult status in Central and Eastern Europe, it remains relatively obscure in the West, mostly due to being a PC exclusive, as well as tons of bugs and glitches. The game is an open-world FPS developed by a Ukrainian studio called GSC Game World. Stalker is set around the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. After a fictional second explosion in the power plant, a surrounding area called the Zone became full of dangerous mutants, deadly anomalies that defy the laws of physics, and mysterious powerful artifacts, which drew the attention of illegal treasure hunters called Stalkers. Anyway, I was so impressed by the game that I bought an original copy, even though I'd been only using the pirated versions before. After the release of the following games from the series, Clear Sky and Call of Pripyat, I bought them immediately. I became interested in paintball and ASG. There were some abandoned buildings in my neighborhood, so I was able to recreate an atmosphere of some firefights from the game. I started to learn Russian, the language used in the series, and I speak it quite fluent now. Hell, I even went on a tour to Chernobyl, and if you want to know, I'm perfectly fine. So yeah, it may sound cheesy, but I'm sure that I would be a whole different person if I had never played a Stalker entry. A few months ago I was digging through the one Russian forum for Shadow of Chernobyl mods. I found one topic called Horror of Chernobyl. It was posted only several minutes ago and no one had replied to it yet. The post itself contained only a link to .torrent file. No description, no screenshot, no list of features. Mysterious mod, I thought to myself. Let's see what secret it contains. I downloaded it and installed it. When I ran the game, everything started as usual. Intro with a truck full of corpses, lightning striking the truck, the stalker carrying the sole survivor, the protagonist, called the Marked One, the traitor's bunker, and a message stating, "Kill the S.T.A.L.K.E.R" on his PDA. The first task also seemed to be unaltered. I began to wonder what, if any, changes had the mod brought, since there was no README file. Gradually, I began to notice some differences. The nights, previously looking more like late evenings, were now pitch black. Also, more mutants were spawning after dusk, so leaving camps in the night was an intense experience. Some new side quests were also added, mostly revolving around some creepy places like Yantar Factory or Bloodsucker's Village and army warehouses. For instance, in one such missions, player has to obtain a flash drive from a warehouse in wild territory. There are, however, several dead bodies. After finding a flash drive and hidden backpack, the corpses came back to life as zombies to attack the player. I was really impressed by the mod creator's idea. It was genuinely creepy. But there was one more thing that was disturbing as hell. It was after several hours of gaming. I was making my way through some open area. I think it was Dark Valley, but I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, I suddenly saw something in the corner of the field of view. It was a ghostly figure, standing on top of a small hill. I faced the direction I saw this mysterious being, but there was nothing. I went on that hill and carefully scanned the area with binoculars, but without any effect. I thought I must be seeing things, so I ignored it. A few hours later, the situation repeated. Weird shape in the corner of an eye, which disappeared after a second. I decided to check on the forum where I found the mod, whether any other player had similar experiences. The thread with the mod was, however, locked a few minutes after I started downloading the file without any reply. One of the moderators deleted the download link and added the sarcastic note stating, "Luke, use the template," with a link to a thread labeled "How to Post Mods Properly." Without any help from other forum users, I decided to solve the mystery by myself. I continued to play, as I thought there must be an explanation somewhere. I began to explore every inch of the game and do every mission, but I hadn't found anything. I decided to continue with the main storyline. I had to meet a character called Dr. Negroprom underground. I reached the location and everything seemed normal. Explosion while going up to the ladder, and Doctor's monologue explaining that the Marked One is in fact S.T.A.L.K.E.R, the man the player's been hunting throughout the game. Suddenly, when Doctor's speech was over, Marked One / S.T.A.L.K.E.R pulled out a grenade. He removed a safety pin and released the lever, while still holding the grenade in his hands. Just before it was supposed to explode, the screen went black and the game crashed. I was confused about what happened, but at the same time, I had a hunch I was on the right track. I decided to try that part again. I assumed that the game crashed because it encountered some fatal error. Dealing with bugs and crashes, especially after modding the game, is just part of the Stalker experience. When I clicked the load game button, I noticed a new save file on the top of the list. It had no name, and instead of a map name, it just showed ... I decided to load this particular file, the most recent one. The loading screen lacked the location screenshot. Instead, there was just X. When the map loaded, the character was standing in some straight, dark corridor. It looked similar to underground laboratories from the game. I noticed I had no weapons, armor, or any other equipment. As there was no other way, I proceeded through the corridor. Suddenly, about 20 meters away, some figure crossed my way, disappearing into the wall. It was the ghost I had seen earlier. I rushed after the figure and found a door, leading to a small, well-lit room. There were several documents inside, describing very disturbing stuff. I feel sick. They said it was just a fire, but I don't believe it. It must be something more. I saw my colleagues falling on the ground, dead. I was glad I survived, but at least they don't have to get through this. High fever, vomiting blood, diarrhea. They said I would feel better, but I know I will die soon. Lena was so happy she could be a mother soon. But what happened to the baby? Half of the child's face is covered with tumor-like things. Papa said something bad happened and we have to go. He didn't say when we will be back. I saw other children leaving the town. I hope we will be back soon. Gone are the homes, the gardens, and the playgrounds. Gone are the souls who made their livings here. I recognized their last words. It was an extract from a song about the Chernobyl disaster called Ghost Town. I exited the room and found myself in some huge underground location. Ghostly silhouettes of people of all ages and sexes were walking, talking to each other without making any sound. It looked like a peaceful town, albeit inhabited with shadows. Suddenly, an alarm siren was on my head. Most of the ghosts started to run away. Others began to attack an invisible enemy. One of the silhouettes fell on the ground, without any move. Others tried to escape, but it tripped. It got on its knees, holding his stomach. It seemed like he was vomiting. Finally, the room was empty. All of the ghosts had either fled or were lying on the ground. The screen faded to black and text appeared, stating, "Thank you for playing this great game, Stalker. Without the suffering of the dead, wounded, and deported, this series would never be created. Victims of Chernobyl disaster." That was the last time I have ever played any Stalker game. Not because I'm afraid of some haunted game. I don't believe in all this paranormal stuff, and I'm pretty sure it was just the work of some sick modder. I was thinking of going back to the series several times, but I still have this strange feeling, as if I was dancing during someone's funeral. So a Stalker creepypasta is a bit of a hard thing to achieve. It's already a very eerie, atmospheric, and downcast game. I'm quite familiar with it, at least the first game. I grew up with Shadows of Chernobyl as a teenager. So how are we ranking this story? Well, it suffers from a lot of what other creepypastas have, of just having a lot of intro and build-up that's not interesting, because the narrator is not really the important character here, it's the showcase of the mod, so I think it's entirely unnecessary to have so many details of like, oh, I love Russia, I'm a Ruskaboo, I guess, because he's learning Russian, but what it kind of stumbles and falls for its very long-winded intro, very poor grammar, I kind of spoke over it, but there is just a complete lack of commas in the story, and it is painful at times. There are sometimes words missing that I had to like flub over. If you notice a bit of a clumsy edit, that's why. But what the story does in return is showcase a very distinctly eerie and not in-your-face kind of horror, where it more accounts for the lives lost during the Chernobyl disaster of like ghostly NPCs roaming the town, just small things being off. You know, some missions being a bit harder, the addition of zombies. It really does feel kind of like a weird modder just picking at random things to make a mod that got taken off, which is exactly what happened at this forum. Though, I feel like the author definitely could have contacted support because he downloaded this because the moderators were aware of this mod, so I feel like you could have just asked or even tried to reach out to the creator himself, since he was a part of the forum. It was very weird of the author to dismiss that entirely, but I suppose that's besides the point. I think it was a very distinct, interesting kind of horror there, or it's subtle might not be the right word for it, but it is certainly not in your face, because it lacks a lot of the more obnoxious tropes of getting a strange mod for your computer. But in exchange, I find that, well, it's just a lot more enjoyable to listen to. It really does feel like something someone would just make, some random Eastern European gentleman would just throw together. So I think in that way it's incredibly immersive and breaks a lot of new ground for such a hard game series to write an actual creepypasta about without completely jumping the shark and making it ridiculous. And I think a lot of people here are inclined to agree, so what would you brothers and sisters think about this story? Please let me know in the comments section below. And until then, have a lovely rest of your day.